Alright, good morning everybody. I had a lot of things I want to talk about today on the video. I told myself, I'm going to stop for a moment. I'm going to learn a little bit. Learn a parak of Mishnayos, a parak of Tanakh, some halachas, look over some Tillim a little bit, try to say a little bit Tillim. And from there, then I can, decide what do I really want to talk about. Are all the things I want to talk about, are those worthwhile to talk about? Yes, no. And they're very important things, but how do I approach them? I need a lot of siyata d'shmaya to be able to say the right things. Not always so easy to find the right things to say. We're still running, right? Alright. The thing that holds my phone up kind of, it's a little weak. Maybe that's also a sign, I don't know. People talking about, a lot of things that I was talking to people about on Twitter. You can follow. By the way, if you're not subscribed to me and you want to hear commentary on all kinds of things, both political and Jewish, and some things on pop culture and everything in between, feel free to hit the subscribe button. I know this video sounds a little boring. Maybe check out some of my other videos. I have lots and lots of videos on a wide range of topics. But with some pause and thought, and I'm probably not going to say the right things anyway, but I'm going to try. There's so much going on right now, and it's hard to really keep up. And sometimes I'll say things, especially on Twitter, some of which is a little bit hyperbolous, but the point of this hyperbole is really to get people to think, to have introspection. I'm not really looking to change people that much, certainly not that much on the outside. I think what's more important is the inner change that we should all go through as we mature in our lives. I look at people who, they might be 50, 60 years old and they're still stuck in many ways in a childish mindset, and other people who I see who have grown in their lives, or maybe they were always mature, I don't know, but I'm not saying that I'm mature, because I know I still have a lot to grow in, and that's part of life, and that's part of adapting to life. I'm hesitating as to whether am I going to talk about the right things. Are the right words going to come into my mouth? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. One issue that came up recently, I discussed in the previous video, was this rock falling, the brick or rock, stone, falling out of the wall, the western wall, the Wailing Wall. I still call it the Wailing Wall. We're still in Gullus. and the significance of this. And really what I wanted to bring out more than anything is that the reformists, they don't really believe in God the same way we do. Although, who's to say, I'm not saying that they're right, but that just because they're wrong doesn't mean that we're right. We could also be wrong. You know, it's very famous, the old Satmar Rebbe, he said that every Rebbe thinks everyone else is wrong and only they're right. Right? Vishnitz or the Bells or whatever, that's how he describes it. And then the Satmar Rebbe says, I agree everyone else is wrong, but I'm also wrong. Just because the Reformed theology is definitely wrong and obviously wrong, doesn't mean that our theology is 100% right. Doesn't mean it's wrong either. But we do believe, certainly, the Hasidic ideology. And I'm not a huge chassid, you know. I'm not, you know, I consider myself more chassidish than chassidic. What I mean by that is that I don't, you know, I reject a lot of the, when I say outer trappings, I don't mean a lot of the Platonic outer trappings of Hasidus, not the Aristotelian trappings of Hasidus. There's a difference between, and that's not to mean that I reject the expressions of them manifest in the physical world, but the borderline idolatrous ideologies behind them. You know, and that's a major difference, really, in a certain sense, between the Russian Hasidim, who are more classically Hasidic, and the Hungarian approach, which is more my approach, which is more classically Ashkenazic, with a mix of, with, in a certain sense, an application of the Sephardic approach to many things. That comes out to really be a perfectly balanced, holistic approach to Judaism. That's really middle of the road normal, and not extreme or excessive or extravagant, even though they're accused of being all of those things constantly. Meaning that when we, the stereotype of the Hungarian Hasidic approach is extreme, it is extravagant, and the truth, particularly as embodied by the Dayanim of these communities and so forth, the halachic geniuses of these communities, the approach is really pretty normal, down to earth, and like I said, holistic, all-encompassing, all-embracing. You know, when you look at many of the Russian Hasidic groups, they focus on their own texts, and that's it. Their own Rebbes, and that's it. And it's not only Chabad, it's the same thing in New Square, to a certain extent in in Mays in Karlin Stolen, and also to a certain extent in Breslov. Not that I'm rejecting Chabad, New Square, Karlin Stolen, Breslov. I have respect for all of those, and that's really the hallmark of the Hungarian approach, is to say, we accept you. We accept all of these as being part of a greater canon that we can draw from, but not in an exclusivist way, but in an inclusivist way. As much as people want to claim that they don't. But it's true. And perhaps, I don't know, we could perhaps say sociologically, because the Hungarian Jews enjoyed a little bit more freedom and were able to use their freedom in a way to in the way freedom is supposed to be used, to embrace piety, that they were able to find that balance and not be extreme one way or the other. Even though it seemed like it was extremism, it really, in a sense, was the opposite. It was really a holistic and very normal approach, a really down-to-earth approach, a really practical approach. And in a sense, it continues to be so to today, despite whatever interior issues might exist. Essentially, if you compare it to other places, there's much more of a practical approach, much more of a down-to-earth, very normal approach. And none of the borderline idolatry. The Hungarians don't worship their Rebbes. You know, fascinating thing. You ask a Satmar Chassid, you ask you ask Chveis, any Chassid, a Square Chassid, a Stolen Chassid, the Lubavitcher Chassid, who's the greatest Rebbe, who's the holiest person? It's their own Rebbe, right? And the Lubavitchers will still say it, even though the Lubavitcher Rebbe hasn't been around in this world for almost 25 years, 24 years, right? And yet they still are in this fantasy that this is the holiest Rebbe, And you ask the Satmar Chassid, who's the holiest Rebbe? They'll say the Sklener Rebbe. When the old Tusher Rebbe was still around, they say the Tusher Rebbe. Not their own Rebbe. So why don't you become a Tusher Chassid? Why don't you become a Sklener Chassid? Why? We don't need these labels. This is. I've said it time and time again, I have to translate this interview with Rabbi Yitzhak Lebovich, the Rav from Woodridge. How, he said, someone, told him, I don't want to be a Satmar Chassid anymore, I'm a Breslover now. and Rabbi Lebovich said, you could learn Breslov. But what do you need the label for? When you say I don't want to be a Satmar Chassid, it means I just don't want to be a Pashut normal Yid. And he has a lot of criticism against what Satmar has developed into these days. He said himself, Satmar is not a Chassidus, it's just the name of the town where his Rosh Yeshiva served as Rav. He was a Talmud of old Satmar Rav, and that was it. That's a very normal, down-to-earth approach. I know a lot of people, even within the communities, don't like that, but it's really the authentic, normal, down-to-earth approach. this being said, the questions that we have to approach things with. And this really has everything to do with what I want to talk about, but I'm still behind a little bit. So, someone said, if you believe that the fact that the stone fell out of the Koisel on Tisha B'Av into the egalitarian part of the Koisel complex, because it shows that God is angry over the egalitarianists, then it means you have to fast again this Sunday. I don't know, we wait till Sunday, you can fast Bahab, Monday, Thursday, Monday. That's more traditional. And it's really not true exactly what he's saying on many counts. But I want to discuss, in a sense, on one end, I don't really have much of a problem with egalitarianism within the realm of halacha. It's a valid halachic discussion, and my personal feeling is, and I've discussed this with big Dayanim and Rabbanim who agree, if someone is orthodox in their ideology, they believe Torah's min hashamayim, and they learn Divrei Chazal like this, they want to see what it says. Can a woman read from the Torah? Can a woman get an aliyah to the Torah, be called up to the Torah, say the brachas? There's really no reason not to, other than we don't do it. Covenant Tzibur. There are a lot of things that are Covenant Tzibur that we don't really follow. For example, the halacha of Covenant Tzibur that to daven for the Yomid, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, you have to have a beard, and you have to be married and have children, because this is going to help you pray. And many yeshivas, they have bachrim daven for the Yomid, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. In my own yeshiva, they did that, and that's why I didn't like to daven yeshiva. Usually I would go somewhere else to daven. I didn't think it was proper for a bacher, just because he has a nice voice, to be chazan Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. I'd much rather, be by an Erlich Rav who's going to daven Shnam, even he doesn't have such a nice voice. Most of them also had a nice voice. But that doesn't really matter to me that much as the feeling, And halachically speaking, you can show the chapter and verse who says in Shulchan Aruch like this, but the fact of the matter is, al pi halacha, a tzibur could be meichel on their kavod, and so too, the whole reason why a woman doesn't get an aliyah is they covenant tzibur. Now, the tzibur has the prerogative not to be meichel on that kavod, and the tzibur also has the prerogative to be meichel on that kavod. The problem with the Reform and the Conservative, to a lesser point with the Conservative, because the Conservative, many of them recognize the primacy of halacha. Certainly among their rabbis, not all of them. More and more of their rabbis, unfortunately, do not. But we could say fortunately, unfortunately, it's hard to say. But essentially, it's not the issue of the external expression of egalitarian, of men and women sitting together without a mechitza. It doesn't even say anything in Shulchan Aruch about a mechitza. Again, this is our minhag. We should keep it very strongly. And those of us we come from communities where we insist on a very high mechitza, that's the proper thing to do for us. But is it really the halacha? No. So what the issue with the Reform, and to a certain extent the conservative, is their beliefs. Their chutz l'machana, there is a certain extent to where theology and belief, faith, is what really counts in Judaism. Even though it's usually considered more of a religion of action than a religion of deed. I mean, a religion of deed or action than a religion of faith. The fact of the matter is, faith is still a major component in Judaism. I mean, I argue with many of my rabbis over this question. Look at the Gemara in Sanhedrin, and many of my friends as well. But with the Mishnah, well, it lists the people who lose their share in the world to come. It's not because you break Shabbos. It's not because you steal, you kill, this or that. All of those things you could really repent from in a certain sense. You might go to Gehenna, you might go to hell, to purgatory, to be cleansed of those sins. But you're not going to lose your place in the world to come after that existence, after that. So then what causes a person to lose a place in the world to come? If they don't believe in one God, they don't believe Torah's from heaven, they don't believe issues of theology, issues of belief. Now there are finer points in the theology we can argue different sides on. But essentially, it's issues of belief. And the fact of the matter is, among the Reform, it's the same question. It's not, do you believe that, do you sit with your wife in the temple? Can a woman be a rabbi? All these types of questions are not really that important. The questions are, do you believe Torah is from heaven? It's a whole other issue, which is really one of the main issues I want to talk about. But I don't have time. I'm almost to work now. It was something that came up, a ridiculous article, I think it was in the New York Times. Just nonsense. And people, they're going to make a whole new religion out of this. They already have. But these are the issues. When we deny that Torah is from heaven, when we deny, that's what really takes us out of the realm of Judaism. You could have another religion. I have respect for other religions. The thing is, you don't really have that many Orthodox, and so much has grown up around the outer trappings, meaning you have they call conservadox. So what does it mean, conservadox? It means conservadox that they're not egalitarian, right? That they're traditional. But is that really the hill you want to die on? Is egalitarianism? The real issues is Torah min Hashamayim. And so to give a woman a piece of paper so she can function as some kind of a minister, a chaplain, even lead a congregation, if the congregation decides that this is, in a small town like this is all we can get. Is that really the end of the world? No. questions that we have to deal with. And instead, we're obsessed with the outer trappings. We're obsessed with labels. I told someone, I said, don't people recognize? Here we have the most pro-Jewish president in history, the most pro-gay president in history. Not that Jewish and gay have anything to do with one another. It just so happens to be. And yet the left labels him a racist and a homophobe and things. Why? Because he lost to a woman who was enabling a rapist. And a woman who her whole being is the opposite of feminism, because she's just riding on the coattails of her successful husband. She has nothing to offer for herself. And people are mad because he won. And they won't forgive him for that. I can't talk anymore. I'm at work. All right.